Yeah, we are officially live. Jay, thank you so much for joining this episode of AI Spotlight Show. For those that are joining us for the first time, my name is Henry Onawole. Some of you might be curious, that was AI Spotlight. AI Spotlight Show started or was founded January this year. And we kick off with our spotlighting event with GTC NVIDIA 2025, where we had the opportunity of interviewing about 20 companies doing GTC. And after that, we also went to Google Cloud Next, where we also interviewed about 14 companies. And next, we went to RSA conference, which is majorly a cybersecurity conference in San Francisco. We also interviewed about 14 companies as well. And our last interview was at Knowledge 2025 ServiceNow, which is a yearly event organized by ServiceNow, where ServiceNow introduced about 3 AI products. AI Spotlight interview. We're so grateful for the opportunity, and we believe with this platform, a lot of our followers on LinkedIn will be able to get updates, as we know that most of our followers are decision makers with major top companies and industries around the world. And we see it as, as an important need to engage in such a discussions like this. Just before me and Jay went live, we're talking about the rapid pace of innovation and the newly launched, product by major tech giants. And there was one striking thing that Jay said that I really liked the most. He said this will make it very difficult for business leaders to make a decision in terms of selecting the right AI tool. And I totally agree with him. And that is why it is important to bring in organizations like deepset to talk more about, their AI products and how you can actually, stay afloat and make the right decision while we're having this, unending innovation in the area of AI space. Jay, thank you for joining this edition of AI Spotlight. Do you want to tell us more about yourself and also deepset as well?
Yeah, I would love to. Thanks, Henry. And hi, everybody, whether it's good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, where you're tuning in from. Just real quick, I have the good opportunity and fortune to lead our marketing and go-to-market and DevRel at deepset. deepset is an early pioneer going all the way back to the kind of foundations of the NLP space in 2018, built out the Haystack framework for AI application building with LLMs and NLP technologies, now agentic, of course, as well, and then continued on to build really vendor agnostic, no lock-in, commercial products that allow you to accelerate and really make the building process extremely agile and collaborative with the business, knowing that these solutions that we're all applying AI to require generally a high degree of customization, a high degree of iteration. And as you kind of alluded to, Henry, we always know that change is around the corner, whether it's coming from the AI industry or just the very dynamic world that we live in today, that we have to react to very, very quickly and be super adaptive. Just kind of stepping back, it's been an amazing experience so far. Been with deepset for the last year. I've gotten to know a lot of the Haystack community and our customers and see the amazing things that they're building around really intelligent planning systems, automation of workflows that are quite complex, as well as your standard fare of chatbots and things like that, Q&A. Before deepset, I was with Salesforce for 7 years, very close to Data Cloud and Einstein and the Marketing Cloud, very big businesses, very big growth businesses as well. And I've always been a startup guy before that. Had the really interesting run with Datarama, which was acquired by Salesforce in between MuleSoft and Tableau back in 2018. So, and we had the great opportunity to meet Henry out in on the West Coast just maybe about a month ago. We were at AWS together. We had a kind of a learning camp that day, and we were talking we were talking about the technology, but we were kind of flipping it the other way around, which was, how do you start from the outcomes and the business use cases and then work backwards to those technology choices, which I think you kind of started to tip into a little bit, Henry, which is you got a lot of them today, right? And there's new ones coming every week. We just heard some really cool news coming out of Google, cool news coming out of Microsoft. I think all of us are really kind of checking out this new video stuff from Google, right? Some great stuff. But, I think coming back to the question that you asked, how do you take advantage of all this? How do you get sort of not locked into one direction or another? So, you're not on any particular disadvantage or any path of something becoming obsolete. You really want to take advantage of, every moment, whether it's the DeepSeek moments, whether the MCP moments, the Google moments, the Microsoft moments, or the things that, emerging players like deepset are building as well. Our whole philosophy is, leverage the entire ecosystem for your benefit. And so we don't necessarily have a horse in the game in terms of the technology components. We want to really help you orchestrate those together and use the best in breed from each step in the applications that you're building.
Wow, that is really amazing. Okay, let's go into a deep dive into the product or platforms, major platforms provide or offered by deepset. And it would be nice if you can give us a brief background of when deepset was founded and a little bit information about the founders.
Yeah, so if we go back in our kind of Wayback Machine and rewind back to 2017, right? You have attention is all you need. Big kind of, milestone moment, especially to those that were paying attention, especially in the research community. Here comes this new, idea around transformers, early compared to what we saw the application of that through the UI and app and GPT, 5-6 years later. But that's where we hail from. We hail from those very earliest days. We were the first to start to translate the Google BERT models at the time into production ready, uses. We started as just developers ourselves, helping companies and public sector government organizations start to harness this NLP technology. Back then, we were thinking about, how to extract, how to search, how to find similarities, right? It was sort of going beyond keywords to understanding intent and semantic meaning. We continued to evolve with where the industry went. And so, over time, you went from NLP, then we started to see the rise of the LLMs and RAG. Today, it's agentic, and action and tool calling, more reasoning, right? And then as we go forward, we're going to start to see what does it look like to go into physical AI, right? That's kind of the next paradigm shift that we'll be building up. But I think the key thing to know, about deepset's history is that it uses experience collectively as a company to see what's hard, to see what's challenging, but also see what's like the common threads. And so what we've always been doing is kind of creating a framework or a set of building blocks to take what's in the industry, whether it's vector databases and pre-processing or different models or prompting or guardrails, right? All these different components, now tools, right? And memory and things like that. And just turn those into simple building blocks where you can build applications where you can use the best of open source and commercial. You can use the best of what's offered from maybe AWS Bedrock, use a NVIDIA guardrail with that. And maybe I want to use my choice of vector DB, et cetera, et cetera. And you can test and debug and look at all those different configurations, and you can, keep them live and up to date like that as the industry keeps on churning out new stuff. So it might be helpful, Henry, I don't know, maybe to go through like Haystack and deepset just a little bit about, what are the jobs that each, the open source framework does in the enterprise platform.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, maybe we should start with the deepset AI Studio. If you can, talk about the platform itself from a perspective of helping organizations to build, to test, to also kind of deploy as well.
Yeah, sure. And maybe, kind of to give some color commentary to this, like, what do we see people building, I think is important to note as well, because there's a lot of things you can build out there today. And there's different ranges of difficulty. There's different ranges of customization that's required to support different use cases. But, for instance, Airbus just shared recently publicly how, we work together, but they work with us. They work with the Bundeswehr, which is the defense, military defense of Germany. They're building intelligence systems, right, that take in real-time data about weather, about what's happening in the world from satellite feeds, pretty complicated stuff, right? Has to be all on-prem, has to be super secure. So a lot of custom requirements, right, to really dial that in for accuracy and security and all that needs to work, for them in all the different ways. We see a lot of use cases in banks, like automating lending processes, claims processes, multi-step, kind of complex workflows. We see people building AI into monetized products, building it into their products where it has to be really sharp and reflect their brand and keep that trust and grow the customer relationship. So maybe it gives you a little bit of a sense of we definitely, angle towards supporting really the most complex things you can do with AI today. And obviously you can do simple things, below that as well. But to get to your point in question, Henry, Deepset Studio is an addition of our AI platform. And so Studio, what's great about Studio is that if you're a developer or you're just curious and you want to check it out, you can sign up for free. It's right on the deepset.ai website. You can log in, you can start using it, you can start building out pipelines. What you'll find inside is a whole bunch of templates for different types of RAG, agent use cases, search, etc., like all the different paradigms of maybe what you want to build with. You can choose any model that you want from the commercial or open source world. It comes preloaded with VectorDB capabilities, but you can also, add your own. So it's up to you. If you want to just kind of move fast and let's keep moving, or you want to build off of your own infrastructure, you can do that too. And then it gives you a visual canvas, so you can drag and drop in, not only the different components to support your indexing and query side of a pipeline, essentially. You've got these building blocks where you can say, okay, I wanted to go get the data here from the VectorDB. I wanted to process this way. Hey, if it's this file type, let's branch it this way, etc. So it gives you a lot of control, all the way through the model, all the way out through the output. And you'll find in those building blocks, like a lot of the popular, names that you'd expect. There's NVIDIA components in there. There's AWS components. There's all the different models are in there. All types of open source components. So you have this kind of workbench, right, of all the best in breed of the industry. And you're like the composer, right, that can compose these together without really any limits at all. And what's great about Studio is you build these applications, it's already like sitting there hosted. So you don't need to worry about, oh, how am I going to share this? How am I going to test this? It's actually already running on a developer backend, with hosting involved. And then, let's say if I build my prototype, now I want to share it with you, Henry. I want to get some feedback. That's just a click away, right? That'll collect all that audit trail, thumbs up, thumbs down, qualitative, etc. And so I can do this iterative process of building to make sure that who I'm building for is incorporating that subject matter expert, and I can refine that through multiple iterations, test different builds with them. It does allow you to then take that code, and you can either a lot of customers say, hey, I like this experience, let me take this straight up into AI Platform Enterprise, which just gives you way more capacity, gives you on-prem capabilities if you want to do that, or VPC, so it gives you a lot more flexibility. Or you could say, hey, I want to take this code and I want to export it as YAML or Python. I want to go run this somewhere else. You can do that too. So I would invite and welcome everybody to check out Studio. It's free to use and super powerful. and really kind of supercharged by a lot of the great feedback from the Haystack developer community, sharing what's still hard about building, right? Beyond just getting the ecosystem into a set of components and pipelines, there's a lot, to solve in terms of infrastructure and agile development process, and so on. So that's a good place to start.
Yeah, that is really amazing. I think one question that comes to mind regarding the deepset studio, does it have a features where users or organization can do like a model comparison in terms of making decision, like, okay, what model would best fit their business use case, and also from a cost-effective perspective as well? Does it have a capability like that?
Yeah, so it's one of the kind of most popular, one of the things that pops out first, right, is seeing side by side. Let's say I want to do an ABC test, right? I want to try, let's try this pipeline with Gemini. Let's try it with the latest OpenAI, and maybe I want to try it against a DeepSeek or another open source model, and I can run those in real time, right, against my data, against my questions, and I can see how the system performs against those. Conversely, I can also flip that around and say, okay, let me go into one model and let me try 3 different prompt styles, right, and see how that affects it. So this is really important because I think and probably your audience here today understands this on a day-to-day basis. When you're building with stochastic or non-deterministic systems, right, it requires you to be iterative. It requires you to be able to test different configurations. 1 + 1 = 2 does not always work in the world of LLMs, right? It can be 2.1, 1.9, right? It's going to be a variance because it's a qualitative answer and it's a predictive system. So having that range of flexibility to try different models out, to try different configurations, test them against each other in that way in the platform, but also with users, and see how do the answers actually look to someone that really understands the lending process, or how does it really resonate with somebody that's in the editorial side of a publisher, right? These are the people that you actually want to get this stuff in front of, because they can help you really understand, is the tone right here, is the accuracy right here, and that's a big part of what we facilitate.
Wow, that is really amazing. Now let us talk about responsible AI principles. Is something that is very relevant to most organizations, most especially those in the healthcare industry and the financial industry. And there's been a lot of, a lot of delay from that industry in terms of implementing or integrating AI into their own workflow. Can you talk about how deepset have been able to put certain guardrails in place in terms when they're utilizing deepset AI Studio, probably for training the models itself?
Yeah, so regulated industries, like you mentioned, in healthcare, in financial services, like banking, insurance, et cetera, capital markets. This would also hold true, I think, of public sector and defense as well, right? These are all highly regulated industries. There's been a lot of experimentation. There's been a lot of piloting. There's been a lot of testing. It's not to say that there's nothing in production, but these are harder environments to go to production. You have to embed this AI into regulated workflows. There's a lot of sort of high-level knowledge worker workflows that are pretty complicated to solve. I'll give you an example. Like, some of the customers that we work with in the banking and the commercial real estate side, the data terrain there, even alone, is very challenging. Sure, you have text and PDFs and you have sort of formatted information, but then you have scans, you have something written on a piece of paper, right, in human handwriting. You have a land survey. You have a legal, set of clauses. the domain specificity of a lot of this information is not something that you can just, kind of set up a simple system where you say, hey, here's a knowledge repository, here's some documents, plus model, output is good enough. Generally, what we hear from these industries is you can get it to maybe 70-80% very, very quickly in terms of being accurate enough, using actually the resources fully enough, and really mitigating that hallucination window. But it takes a lot of fine tuning, not so much necessarily on the model side. I mean, it's one option, but in the actual compound AI system. So how do you set up your rules in terms of how the data is indexed, how it's processed, how the prompt is created, what model or models are you assigning to different types of tasks and documents, right? Like we see a lot of use of LLMs for certain parts of it, OCR and computer vision for other parts of it. So there's a lot of different kind of customizations there that are required. So on the one hand, you need a lot of flexibility to do that. You need a very kind of iterative, collaborative environment. You definitely need a ton of subject matter expert collaboration from the very start. It's not stuff that you want to build in a vacuum and then just launch, right? You're not going to kind of see the adoption if you do that. And it's an area that I think, even the most, kind of technically advanced or generally experienced companies, they're looking for advice and best practices on how to solve some of these kind of gnarly challenges as you move up the food chain from basic Q&A and chatbots to more reasoning and workflow automation solutions. And so, I think part of the big relationship factor between DeepSet and customers is we've got this great open source flexible framework to take advantage of the industry. We've got a great agile development platform to make building fast and iterative. But it's also, we have really elite AI experts that have been in this space for a long time that can kind of extend and just like embed into your team and give very detailed and very relevant advice as to how to solve some of the trickiest challenges that you may be aware of, you may not even be aware of in building these solutions. And we always work through those and make sure that the system is ready for accuracy, adoption, and is going to deliver at the end of the day on like why are we building this? What's the key metric, or what's the key ROI that we're trying to deliver here? We spend as much time making sure that we all know what that is, as well as making sure that the tools and the systems practically do what they need to do.
Wow, that is amazing. Okay, let's talk about the typical use case of what most of your clients or current partners of DeepSet, how they use the DeepSet AI Studio. Can we talk about the most common use cases?
Yeah, sure. And again, so Studio is an addition. The enterprise version is really mainly what we see our enterprise clients using. I alluded to some of them. I mentioned the Airbus, one. That's really like real-time planning and intelligence, and really where it gets used the most is dealing with what's called pop-up events, things that you didn't plan. So maybe you're, routing a new supply of, resources to a given area in your defensive posture, and suddenly there's a weather event. Suddenly there's, something that could be challenging to, getting that mission done. How do we react to that, right? And synthesizing everything from where we are, what we're trying to do in this mission, to what are the doctrines that we follow in terms of global law, NATO standards, things like that. Those are systems that I would say are around planning and strategy and doing that in a real-time manner. It has a lot of similarity, by the way, to use cases, let's say, in quantitative finance and trading. You're doing very similar things there as well. You're trying to interpret a lot of different real-time signals. Energy markets go through a lot of this. Supply chain certainly today is very real time, much more than it used to be. So those are all those kind of planning and strategy. A really interesting one, by the way, Henry, that has come up, recently. One of the big manufacturers that we work with that's applying that same type of planning workflow is doing this for their SAP S4 HANA migration. So if I just said that and it gave you like a little tingle there, it probably means yes, you're in a migration, and everybody that's in that world needs to get that done over the next couple of years. It's a very kind of fast timeline for such a large embedded part of the ERP infrastructure. But 70% of those projects go over budget and go over time because of poor communication, project management, not being able to sort of coordinate hundreds of people in your company and consultants. So what this manufacturer is doing with us is they're creating a centralized, basically intelligence layer where all of the plans, all the best practices, all of what they learned from factory A that could be useful for factory B, all of the JIRA tickets, everything that's been solved or is open, it's all there. So there's this kind of network and layer there that all these different folks that are working on the project, if they have similar questions, don't open another support ticket. Maybe it's already solved. You're running into a new challenge of how to migrate this part of it. Maybe that's already been solved over here in the last phase. But keeping that all together can be really challenging. That's another great example of planning and strategy. The other side, Henry, is workflows, right? Workflow automation. I mentioned the lending piece. If you don't know the world of lending inside out, what's hard about it is you have like 1,000 pages, you have 50 to 100 documents come in from a borrower, especially in the commercial, side, where it's quite complex. You're basically having to show your credit worthiness, and you have a lot of diverse documentation that substantiates that. And that can take 2 weeks to process. It's a lot of information for a human to go through. You can cut that down to a single day operation with AI, if you can handle that type of data and do it accurately enough. And that's kind of the real trick, is like automating something without introducing more risk, right? Because that is the business, is reducing risk, right? Yeah. So that's how, risk lenders think about this is it safe enough? Not just because safety is the right thing to do always, but safety really means dollars and cents in that scenario. So we see a lot there. I think it's very analogous to like insurance claims. That's another big area. We see also like insurance enablement, products, policies, rates. All this stuff is changing all the time. You want to figure out what the latest change is on pet insurance. Like in the old days, you would be searching through files and folders, right? Today, you're getting real-time answers as it's updating in the market, or maybe as regulations are changing. So those are some of the kind of common ones that we see. There's some other ones, as I mentioned, Henry, like we see, definitely see like a good amount of people building AI into their front-end products or experiences. Oxford University Press shared some of the work that they're doing on their website, making the Oxford, dictionary, which is again quite a complex corpus, very specialized, searchable with AI. We've seen companies productize AI and lift their revenues by get a 5x return on that by changing the nature of how you get information out of a system. These are information businesses like market research, publishers, B2B compliance organizations, stuff like that. So that gives you some of the range. And again, as I mentioned, there's also folks that are just building chatbots and automating simple things, but we typically see kind of more of the more sophisticated work, at least on the enterprise side. In the world of Haystack, people are building all types of stuff, and it's always really interesting to see. By the way, if your viewers want to check it out on arvix.org, there's a great example of what Comcast built for their customer service AMA bots. Cool. So that's a good one to learn from as well. But those are the right questions to be asking. I think we as like an industry need to ask more about use cases and value. in addition to keeping up with the latest technologies and kind of, what are the new feature sets, the really important thing is how do you use it and apply it to what, and what's the best configuration?
Wow, that is amazing. I think my next question is, can you talk about some of because everyone see AI as a game changer. Everyone see AI as a tool that can help them increase their return on investment. Some also see AI as a tool that they can use for for achieving cost saving. Then, what are the common customer success story from a business, metrics point of view?
Yeah, sure. So I think, like in those examples that I mentioned around defense, the number one thing is around accuracy and speed. So, can you deliver an answer accurately in under 1 second or within a certain parameter, depending on in the situation. If it's like supporting people in flight or in a vehicle, things like that, it needs to be really, really tight. If somebody in the command center, there might be a little bit more latency. It can be okay. In the PubSec space, we've seen a lot of helping inform citizens about like application processes, and then also using AI to then automate going through those applications, let's say for a grant, stuff like that, right? So the metrics that we see them using is really first is around adoption. I think they're really interested to make sure before we measure anything else, is it valuable to people? Are they using it? Like that's number one. And then it's like, okay, how efficiently now can we keep up with the demand? And particularly in public sector right now, it's really important, especially in Europe. There is a big labor deficit there. They don't have enough people to actually have in government to keep up with demand. So they're really looking towards AI to continue to scale up and make the citizen experience better with the teams that they have. In fact, I think they'd like to hire more people, but the populace is just, not even there right now, or interested in those roles. If you kind of flip to the business side, this was just written up in Forrester just this last week. One of the customers we work with is called YPulse. They're a market research firm that focuses on millennials. So if you want to understand what's the latest with, tweens right now and, video games in this region and these brands, et cetera, they provide great insights to that, to big brands like YouTube and Spotify and others to understand youth culture. They looked at this and said, AI is existential for us. If we don't get on board with this, we're a product SaaS company. We sell information, right? And the tools to go get it. If we don't adopt this, somebody else will, and we're going to be behind. So there is a big urgency driver there, especially if you have products that you have to go there. They did set their benchmarks and said, we want to deliver a 5x ROI on this. And so they've already done that in less than a year. They saw their customer engagement go up 25% as a result. And they made the right choice because, they had to make basically a decision about, do we use AI to make more content, or do we use AI to make the content consumption experience more personalized? And they actually asked their users, which one do you want more of? And their users said, we want the personalized experience because we can't even keep up with all the stuff that you're manually writing today. So don't give us more. We actually have a feeling of FOMO. So help us get more value. So those are some of the, metrics there. I've definitely seen on the legal side, it's the ability to more efficiently, build out, cases and go through precedents, things like that. As you mentioned, sort of the productivity and efficiency stuff. And on that lending side, kind of the key metrics wind up becoming around, how do I 2x basically, our lending without introducing more risk, decreasing the amount of human error, and then putting us in a position where, again, we can expand into new markets without having to just proportionally expand headcount. So how do we more efficiently use these really valuable, really talented, high knowledge resources to be able to get out of the mundane work of data preparation and cleansing and all that stuff that we know from the data world. It's the same thing. It's still playing out, just in more unstructured ways in businesses. How do we focus their time on what's really important and valuable? And what's really interesting about that too, I think there's an element of this too, Henry, which is there's the qualitative side of it, which is how does it change the relationship of people to their jobs? And when I was talking with Ralph, he's the president of a fintech called Credex that's doing exactly this type of stuff. He said initially our analysts were skeptical, and rightfully so, right? They know how hard it is to go through commercial real estate documentation. It's really challenging stuff. And through the process, and they were really great testers of all of this and really helped us together, nail the solution. They become huge advocates and huge fans because we've taken together the mundane aspects of the job and allow them to, spend their time where it's more interesting, where it's figuring out what are the right lending opportunities. Let me more deeply understand who this customer is, and less time just trying to get through all the paperwork and, through this case as fast as I can.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, let's talk about the interoperability capabilities of, deepset technology from the studio down to Haystack.
Sure. Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about deepset now up here. So think about that as your agile environment. I'm going templates. I can, do my data, got my pipelines. I can iterate, test, right? I can monitor for hallucinations. I've got enterprise security, right? I can connect all that into my IDE environments, et cetera, CI/CD. So it's a super agile, fast building meant for the world of very adaptable AI, very customizable AI. So, which by the way, I think that's why it lends itself so well to these harder use cases, because they require so much of that. Now, if you kind of go down a level into Haystack, what's the job that is doing down there? Well, what Haystack is doing is it's a very lightweight and transparent framework that describes what are pipelines, which is basically how do you go from the indexing of the data to serving the query, which could be a human or it could be event-based, right? It could be a series of automations. So what Haystack does in a very kind of in the right balance of abstraction is allow you to, easily string these things together. And, in the first days of all this was, deterministic pipelines where you say it starts here, it branches and goes this way to handle maybe different types of information. I want to route it to these different models. I want to put these guardrails on it. And oh, by the way, before you do this, make sure, never answer that, or if you can't find the answer, go search for this, etc. So you have this very custom configurable pipeline, and those components inside describe the data, the preprocessors, the models, etc. So you've got these components as building blocks together. Today, that's also now agentic, right? So that allows you to create agentic systems with memory, with looping, with reasoning, with your standard of what you want to sort of come out of those where you've given the models more agency to figure things out. It's integrated with MCP today. We'll continue to integrate with all the different protocols out there as we're starting to see this interoperability framework start to develop in different ways. And you can mix and match those modalities. So you have sort of this choice of saying, I want this to be fully deterministic. I just want to make it, A to B to C to D to E. Or I can give full agency and go fully agentic, or I can go somewhere in the middle and say, step one, always do it this way. Step two, always do this. Then let the agent figure this part out. Then let another agent figure this out, but then always do this, right? So it gives you kind of that full flexibility. The thing that, folks, when I talk to developers on the ground, like why Haystack, because there's different developer frameworks out there, all of which I think offer good ways to understand how to build. However, I think some of the other frameworks out there some of the challenges is like too abstracted, really not production ready enough. Things change really quickly, things break, right? So don't really want to bring it to work because, it could create kind of a fire drill or a real issue for us. Haystack is a production grade framework, and it's used by tens of thousands of companies, some of the biggest companies in the world, biggest technology companies, biggest financial companies, biggest healthcare companies. And, it's used in production because the abstraction level really gets you down to that level of granularity that you need. You don't sort of lose yourself in the web of abstractions. That's one thing that developers talk about. Another thing that they talk about is the documentation is very robust and really clear. Lots of great examples. A developer described that to me as like, you guys treat it like the product. It's not some afterthought, right? And then having things like change break policies and the ability to know when something's going to be deprecated 6 months in advance. Well, you know what those contingencies and dependencies are. So if you've got something in production, you know how to handle that. You're not going to get a surprise, gotcha moment, things like that. And overall ease of use. So if you are a developer and you haven't tried Haystack, just check out Haystack, AI. It's linked off of deepset AI as well, but you can go check that out. And then, as we talked about earlier, the Studio Edition then kind of gives you like a community version to try it out with like the agile process on top as well. But Haystack is really loved by the community, and if you're an enterprise developer, you really want to check it out.
Yeah, that is good to hear. Yeah. My next question will be, how is deepset helping its customers and partners to incorporate change management?
Yeah, I mean, change management, the people side of it is definitely not something that you want to treat as an afterthought. As I mentioned before, like change management happens well before deployment. Change management happens actually in the development process. Like you have to back that all the way up into, we're building our first prototype. We want to actually start to bring the people that are our potential beneficiaries of this use case. That's where you want to start working with them right there, rather than let's build something and then roll it out and then we're just going to tell everybody how it's supposed to work now. Those subject matter experts are your best friends. They're the ones that can match your technical acumen with their knowledge of how the processes are supposed to work, right? And what's difficult and what's hard about it. What are those corner cases? So my best advice is, reel those change management and those subject matter, expert interactions in all the way to the prototype process, and use that prototyping process as a way to unearth what you need to build and what you don't know. It should be prototyping with the purpose of getting to production with the assistance and the collaboration of the business side. That may sound obvious, but I think, in the 20 years that I've been in various spaces of technology, we still sometimes forget to do that each time we go through a different round of the next big thing. And it's always that collaboration, that tighter collaboration that's going to make it work. We have, our team can help from everything from, as I said, like the elite kind of AI expertise and guidance and best practices. We've seen a lot of these different complex systems, so we usually can come with a really good point of view about how to make good choices about configuration and what to test, and maybe how to solve something. If you have 5 different ways to do it, let's go this way because it's the most efficient, etc. We also lean in and really work with our customers to understand what's the bigger process that maybe something is within, and how do we help you guys explain and train people on how to use this new system within a larger workflow, right? And also, what are the other opportunities in that bigger end-to-end process? Because, let's say if I can solve the lending, process of dealing with the documents and doing the credit analysis. Well, then I got to onboard customers. I got to deal with customer service complaints from time to time. I have to look at, governance of those, or covenants, of those insurance policies, which could change in regards to regulations. So we also help companies kind of look at what is the end-to-end picture here, and what are the other bottlenecks here that we can, start here, but then let's help the team address the other challenges and take on a bigger transformation than maybe a single step. I would say, probably where we end on that is, for the full kind of enterprise transformations, that's where we maybe work with our partners like PwC and so forth, where if it starts to go, really large scale transformation, I think that's where, some of the ecosystem partnerships come into place. But use case, departmental, AI expertise, changing these processes, we treat this like a white glove relationship. Success is never really done. It's always better, faster, more, and certainly I think for anybody that's gone to production, I think one of the things you learn right away too is that it's just version 1.0, and you got to be ready to get that next round of user feedback, or pay attention to what the industry can bring next to make it better, and continue to evolve it like a living solution.
Well, thanks for your response. We're rounding up. I guess I have two more questions. What is the how does deepset helps to contribute to the AI workforce in terms, new AI technology have been launched, and a lot of people need to kind of catch up. Then how is deepset actually helping? Because if organizations are deploying all of this AI technology, who are the experts that will help them to maintain the system, to improve on it?
Yeah, I mean, the Haystack community is a great example of that, right? You have folks that have learned how to build with AI going all the way back to the early NLP days, the RAG days, now the agentic days. So you have like different histories in this community, which is really cool to see. But it's a really great way to be able to quickly learn, the building blocks of how to build applications. We put out a lot of training and a lot of educational content. If you're on deep learning AI, for instance, like there's a great course there to get started. Then you can come to our website. We've got lots of great recipes, lots of great tutorials. And you can really start to see, what to build. In fact, this last month, we just did a developer challenge on building with MCP, building a GitHub, agent to help you, deal with your tasks of building a product, dealing with requests, putting those into code, etc. So we're always there, coming with ideas and coming with generally practical things that we like to do fun stuff, but we also like to bring stuff that like you could really do in a job. And I think that's really important. And then, I think in terms of the, more of the studio and the enterprise products, if you're an AI developer and maybe you're, let's say it this way, maybe you are or aren't super familiar with like infrastructure, right? So our products give, these users the capability to either not worry about infrastructure, where it's like, I can just build the solutions and I don't need to worry about the hosting and the memory and the compute and all that. It's just taken care of. Like, I don't need to deeply learn that. Or, nope, I do have that, or I have a partner that knows how to do that. And I want to leverage our own infrastructure. I want to put it in our VPC or on-prem. I want to use our own vector BDB, et cetera. So you have that flexibility. So I think it's just, it's like meeting people where they are with the skill sets that they have, and providing that entryway into, building and understanding what goes into an AI solution, like beyond the models, right? The models are an important piece, but how do you actually really construct something that, works within these different examples we talked about here today, or other things that, if you're tuning in from another industry, you might be thinking about other things in retail or other places like that. That's the real key. And I'd say if there's anything that I would recommend focusing on is like, yes, learn the technical side, but even, as much or more, deeply invest in understanding the use cases and the value, because that's what's going to get your company beyond the experimentation phase and the piloting phase. Is what's really moving an important aspect of our business to be more adaptable, to grow, to be more efficient. People that are taking that approach are building, I think, really serious and solid career trajectories by being able to kind of navigate the technical side and the business side and bring those two together. That's certainly how we like to partner with our customers, is to make sure that that fusion happens, because that's where big changes happen. That's where companies rally behind that, and that's how you get big momentum, right? And you start to get into production as a normality rather than an exception.
Wow. Yeah, my last question will be, can interested customers or partners scheduled for a demo from the deepset, can they also probably subscribe for trial version?
Yeah, so if you head to deepset.ai, you can take both paths. So you can sign up for Studio. That's the free version of deepset, which we talked about. Allows you to go in there, build, test, try things out with like a developer, infrastructure underneath, mainly for like prototyping and testing at small scale, which you can then, export out how you like, or move up into deepset Enterprise Edition. Or yeah, you can go ahead right now and schedule either a conversation or a demo. And I'd say, if you take that path, what to expect is, we'll be interested to understand kind of where you're at on your journey. Do you have use cases identified? Do you need help thinking through that? If you have something really identified, or we help you get there, we'll help you prioritize that. We'll help you think through the business logic of it. We'll help you think through the business case, and we'll demonstrate the proof of how to solve it with AI and the different ways that you can do it. But that's kind of how we work together with customers, is to make sure that let's see if the AI is feasible to solve what you're trying to solve, and let's make sure that as a buyer and a stakeholder, that you have the support you need to help quantify this, to get it prioritized in your company to get done.
Wow, Jake, thank you so much. This is very insightful. Thank you for joining our first virtual edition of AI Spotlight interview. I still have some questions. Probably we need to have episode 2.0. We are out of time. I want to also appreciate everyone that were able to join this live. If you have any question, you can visit the deepset website. There's a contact information. And one more thing I want to establish, irrespective of your industry, whether it is retail, fashion, transportation, you can always leverage deepset platform for building your AI solutions. And it is not restricted to just one industry. And they are super friendly. You can see Jay is, very loaded. Will I say it's very knowledgeable? Then I used to tell him that he's very, very technical, because I attended one of his workshop in San Francisco, and now I see the manner at which he was able to handle, every question that was presented to him. Then if you are a developer too as well, you want to upskill yourself, you heard it from Jay. They have an open source platform. You can join them in innovating the platform and becoming more proficient, and also provide more opportunities for yourself. Jay, thank you so much for joining this episode of AI Spotlight Show, and you guys stay tuned. We'll be having someone from deepset for a demo session in the month of June. And everyone, thank you, and do have a great day. Thank you so much, Jay, and talk to you soon.
Thanks, Henry. Talk soon. Bye, everybody. See you soon.
Bye.